Greetings, family. Peace and love to you and yours. This is Guru. Thanks for visiting my channel. So, family, I saw this video clip of Roland Martin, and he's interviewing this guy named Richard Spencer. He is from the alt-right. Roland Martin tried to get him to define that as white supremacist or white nationalist. The guy does not like to be called that, but it is what it is. That's what he is. He is a white supremacist. He's a white nationalist. But again, he goes by the name alt-right. Because that name, at this point in time, is their code word or their coined word that best describes who they are. But in the end, they're just racist. They're white racists, and that's what they are. So with further ado, I just want to point out that after watching the video, there was a segment of the video that I found very comical, not in a haha way, but in a way that they've got to be crazy, okay? This guy is just crazy stupid. And it's the part where he believes that the ancient Egyptians are white. And I just want to share that with you for a minute.
Genius and magic railroads, okay.
Yeah.
No, but see, you said
Are there railroads in Africa?
You said yes. You said
why?
You said
Because of us.
hold on. You said okay. First of all,
That is absolutely true.
First of all, the greatest genius when it came to the building of the pyramids. Do you know what
Those
they
are white people, by the way.
Who are white people?
The Egyptians are not African. I'm sorry.
Do you know where Egypt is?
Yes, it's in
Where?
North Africa.
Okay, stop. Stop right there. You just said that you said the Egyptians are not African.
Are white South Africans African?
Wait. Yes, they are African. See, okay, to be African means you come from the continent of Africa. So if you come from the continent of Africa, that's who you are. So that means you're an African. So and you do know. Do you also deny science that man originated from Africa, or do you say that's false science?
What are you talking about? I mean, what are you referring to?
I'm talking
Science.
archaeology. I'm talking biology. I'm talking science. In terms of the where did man originate? Where scientists? White scientists?
Egypt was an amazing
No,
civilization.
I didn't
It
say
was not created by black Africans. I'm sorry.
It wasn't. Who created it?
People who are white.
How are people?
You can look you can actually look at art and they differentiate between races.
I gotta ask you a question. How do you
From ancient Egyptian art.
You do know those were black people. You do know.
Hey, sorry.
You do know from science you can't get black from white. You can get white from black. You do know when it comes to evolution. When it comes.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Do you never studied science?
I see what you're. Yes, I have.
No, so but
I mean, I'm not a scientist.
But
Are
man,
you?
but man originated in Africa. Yes or no?
That is a consensus. Yes.
Okay.
That's
So if
out of Africa.
so if man originated in Africa, which means that they were Africans, then all of a sudden when you talk about the amazing works of the Egyptians, they were people of color. I know that's a little rough for you to handle, but I know you want to hold on to that somehow thinking whites built the pyramids. But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That's
a fact. Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so family, you just saw the idiocy of this guy, Richard Spencer. He, I'm assuming, is the spokesperson for the alt-wrong, because that's exactly what they are. That sign that's right behind his peanut head that reads alt-wrong, yeah, he's alt-wrong. To even think that the ancient Egyptians were white. They were anything but white. The ancient Egyptians worshipped black gods. They happened to be some of the most religious people on the face of this earth. And everyone knows that even out of all the people today, the most religious people on earth today happens to be black people. The ancient Egyptians, they always wore their traditional braided hairstyle. They always represented themselves as brown or black skin in the hieroglyphs, in the murals, in their art, whatever representation they showed themselves, they represented themselves as black African people. To say that they're white, this is European propaganda. They're just talking about something that they're wishing for. They look at the ancient Egyptian civilization as something so grand they can't fathom anyone but themselves creating it. And that's just false information. You can't even get them to even come up with a proof of that. There's zero trail of evidence from Europe to Africa to even support that notion. Zero, or vice versa. There's no trail of evidence leading one way or the other. Why would Europeans leave Europe anyways just to build a grand civilization in a foreign land? It doesn't make sense. And when it doesn't make sense, you must quit. How would the Europeans be able to live at the equator? As hot and intense as the sun is, there's no possible way, zero possible way, Europeans or white-skinned people would be able to live there and create anything of a civilization or anything that looks like civilization. Richard Spencer certainly doesn't understand that during Africa's heyday, and I'm talking about in North Africa and in Egypt in particular, in their heyday, Europe and Europeans were on all fours living inside of caves. You were uncivilized. You weren't even civilized. As a matter of fact, if black people knew what they knew today and did not help you out of your condition and left you in the caves, you would still be there today. And so, looking back in hindsight, when you went into Africa, your ancestors, when they went into Africa and saw that the Africans had built great civilizations and cities, organized states, of course you did what you did to Africans here in the United States, namely in what's called Black Wall Street and Rosewood. You burned it down and destroyed it, whatever you couldn't steal. Europeans, you guys have done some cruel, evil, rotten things. And yes, we understand that you are just trying to preserve your simplistic culture that you've stolen from everyone else. But it's built on eggshells that's already cracked. Your civilization is built on eggshells that's already cracked. It's crumbling because it's built on falsehoods. Your whole existence, everything about you, you've stolen from someone else, and then you've claimed it as your own. And then you say, oh, and I'm the creator of it. No, you're not. You're the benefactor, that's it, of everything that other people do. And then you say, oh, it's from my hard work. No, it's not. It's from the hard work of others that you get ahead. So tell the truth, because that's what this is about. That's what this channel is going to be about. Telling the truth. So, Richard Spencer, we're not going to allow you to get on the Roland Martin show and tell people that the ancient Egyptians were white, because that is false. It's incorrect information. The ancient Egyptians worshipped black gods. They were some of the most religious people on the face of the earth, something that you guys run from. So you can't even compare yourselves to the ancient Egyptians. Nothing that you guys do even compares yourselves to the ancient Egyptians. You're lying. And we're not going to allow you to do that. Okay, family, we're about to move on to another portion of this video. Here is where Roland Martin is trying to talk to him about science. And I just want you to pay attention to how stupid and dumb this idiot is, who gets up on TV, and then he acts really dumbfounded when Roland Martin is talking to him about science, and he's talking about, archaeology, paleontology, biology, stuff like that, that deals with finding out the facts that he should be knowing what he's talking about, and why he just sounds so ignorant. But again, I'm going to let you see this.
Do you also deny science that man originated from Africa, or do you say that's false science?
What are you talking about? I mean, what
Just
are you
an
referring to?
idiot.
I'm talking archaeology. I'm talking biology. I'm talking science. In terms of the where did man originate? Where scientists? White scientists.
Egypt was an amazing civilization.
And then he switches gears again.
Black Africans, I'm
Who
sorry.
was it? Who created it?
People who are white.
Okay.
Okay, so once again, this guy is a complete idiot. I don't really blame him though. You know who I partially blame is I partially blame the Eurocentric Egyptologists. The Egyptologists are crooks. They have a group out that's called the Amen List. They're crooks. I'm gonna tell it to you like it is. As a matter of fact, they should be. I wouldn't be surprised if they're part of the white nationalist group. These people tout that the ancient Egyptians are white. It's all based on lies. When you start asking them questions about how is it that the ancient Egyptians are white when they portray themselves as brown and black people, they say that the ancient Egyptians, those were white people with tans. And then when you ask them about how is it that they have braids in their hair, then why is it that, where did that come from? Then they tell you that they all wore wigs. And then you ask them, well, why is it that they wore braided wigs then? And then they tell you, well, it's because the braids were acted like an air conditioning for their heads because of how hot it was there. Can you believe this BS? This is what white people have actually said these things to me about the ancient Egyptians, because they are trying to make a case that they're the ones who built the Egyptian civilization. Egypt happens to be one of the greatest civilizations in Africa, yes, but there were plenty others. There were plenty others. In Nubia, it was the Nubians who knew how to take over the ancient Egyptian civilization when the Egyptians went into decline. It was the Nubians who came through and rescued ancient Egypt and took it over and ruled it for another 100 or so years without issues. And these were other Africans. Yes, they were the Nubians. Not only that, but if you want to find more pyramids, go to Europe and see how many you find there. You won't find many, but I tell you what, if you go down into Ethiopia, you'll find you'll find so many of them. Because yes, in Ethiopia, they had plenty of pyramids there too. But see, the Egyptologists and stuff, they don't want to talk to you about that. Or they'll try to tell you that, yeah, but those came after the fact. It doesn't matter. Europe never got any. That's the whole fact, is that Europe never got any. Why is it that they have them in inner Africa, but they don't even have any in Europe? Yeah, it's because Europeans are lying. That's why. Once again, lying. And we're going to stop you and we're going to expose you at every turn. And Richard Spencer, you're a liar. Or you're just plain ignorant and you don't know any better. So therefore, I'll just put you on the, you are the donkey of the dang day. You are the donkey of the day. Richard Spencer, donkey of the day. Because you are ignorant. To sit there and try to say that the ancient Egyptians are white. They are not. And they never were. The few that you even see in pictures, that's because in Egypt's decline, when invaders came in, well, they imitated what the Egyptians looked like because they marveled at what they saw. So what did they do? They did what they do best, what Europeans do best. They imitated. and they dressed up as ancient Egyptians. They put on their garb. They did their faces up like Egyptians and all kinds of silly stuff, but you didn't know anything about the culture or ideas at all. So, with that said, we're going to laugh at you. And like I said, we're just going to call you the donkey of the day, Richard Spencer, for being ignorant and getting up on the Roland Martin show trying to tell people that the ancient Egyptians are white when they never were. And we're not going to allow you to say that false narrative ever again without getting it challenged.
You do know from science you can't get black from white. You can get white from black. You do know when it comes to evolution. When it comes,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Do you never studied science?
I see what you're. Yes, I have.
No. So, but
I mean, I'm not a scientist.
But
Are
man,
you?
but man originated in Africa. Yes or no?
That is a consensus. Yes.
Okay.
That's
So if
out of
man,
Africa.
so if man originated in Africa, which means that they were Africans, then all of a sudden you talk about the amazing works of the Egyptians. They were people of color. I know that's a little rough for you to handle, but I know you want to hold on to that somehow thinking whites built the pyramids. But I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, we did.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That is
That's a fact. Okay,
Sure.
Because first of all, they were building things in Egypt while white Europeans were still in caves. That's a fact.
That's
a fact. Okay.
Okay, family, right here, right here, this shot right here, this is where Richard Spencer just admitted that, yes, white people came from out of caves. So at least we got that acknowledgement, and I'm glad they finally acknowledged that they are cave people. Richard Spencer is a good example of a caveman. He is a liar. Cavemen, they usually do lie. You can't trust them. So I wouldn't trust much of what this caveman is talking about. And so I'm gonna end it here because I just thought this was a very telling point of this video here of a white supremacist who is actually a caveman, and he admits of that. And also I just wanted to expose the fact that these liars like to think that the ancient Egyptians were white. And that's just so far from the truth. And they'll never really debate you down on it because they're going to bring up every excuse in the world why they can't do that, why they don't want to have that discussion. It's a discussion they do not want to have because they know that they'll lose at every turn. So with that said, family, I'm going to end it off here. The ancient Egyptians never were white. It's always been a black African civilization. They had a few times where they had invaders come in and they managed to overpower the Africans there. And yes, they did for a small period of time, but during the heyday of the ancient Egyptians, the height of their civilization for over thousands of years were always maintained by black African people. That's a fact. This history is well documented over thousands of years. Something you just cannot change. So with that said, family, please leave a like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. This is Guru. Again, this is the look of a white supremacist, white nationalist. Now they call themselves alt-right, but they are alt-wrong if they ever try to tell you that the ancient Egyptians were white. The ancient Egyptians never were white. Never have, and they never will be. Thanks a lot for watching. This is Guru. Peace and love to you and yours. Black power comes out of ancient Egypt. Black power is what comes out of ancient Egypt. Peace out.